Alrighty, so a good morning to all of you. Sorry, normally I come live and then maybe I'll take a minute before I start, and those of you on Zoom will see me actually live, but I won't start for about a minute. That is because I'm actually connecting the Facebook feed. What I noticed is that, again, like I've been saying, there's been a bit of a challenge with Zoom. I don't know what's going on with their API connections at the back end, but there seems to be this disconnect. But anyway, good to have all of you here, and welcome those of you both on Facebook and here on the Zoom page. Always a pleasure to have you here. And today's a Monday. This is the 29th of August, the last Monday of the month. This is one of those months where we've had 5 Mondays, whatever that means. But anyway, either way, it's always good to have you here. And as always, we have the J team, which is our team and what we share all the time with every one of you on a regular basis. Our aim, our goal is very simple. It's to share what we teach in an open and powerful way so that every one of you can be able to benefit. This is one of the ways in which we give back. And the idea is to inspire change and difference in people. There's myself, there's my wonderful elder sister, Dr. Nelly, and my elder Aunt Sylvia. And then we've got Anne Vachaita, who's currently in Toronto. They should be starting back now. And then we've got all the other leaders that join us on a regular basis. Dr. Nelly has a lot of her people that she trains, that she puts on the platform from time to time. And so we're always grateful to offer this as a way of just inspiring change. You are the change you seek, and unless you do something about it, you can't change. And I mean, you can't really change the world. So you can't sit around waiting for someone else to make the change. Why don't you make the change? Instead of waiting for somebody that can be a guide, why don't you be the guide? If you're waiting for somebody to be a leader, why don't you be the leader? I always say, people complain about the politicians. Oh, politicians are all full of crap. We need real leaders. Yeah, go in there and be the real leader. Go and make the difference. So do something active in your life to be of impact. One of the greatest lessons I've learned ever in my life is that we are all called to service. And as a Christian, that's a very, very powerful statement. A lot of people don't understand. The word service is actually the other word for work. The word work and service are one and the same word, and they also mean ministry. And when you work it out and look at the real rich meaning of that word, it's where you also get the word worship. So worship in Hebrew is the same word, and it's avoda. So avoda means worship, it means work, it means service, it means ministry. Think about that. So every waking moment of your life, you're in ministry. You are serving, you're doing something out there. And if you're not serving and just receiving, then you're like the Dead Sea, which just receives, does not give out any life. And that's not the kind of thing you want. No wonder Jesus said it's more blessed to give than to receive. For those who receive have already gotten their reward, but those who give, they get it pressed back, shaken together, running over, you know the story. So the idea is you gotta be a giver, and you can give in many ways, and this platform is one way in which the leaders on this group give back. And I tell you, God has been faithful. He has blessed our leaders so much. We have seen the hand of God. We've seen amazing things on account of the fact that we give without expecting anything in return. This is the true principle that Jesus taught about giving in such a way that you don't expect anything in return. And God, in his own mercy, grace, and goodness, will bless you back. So anyway, let's jump and really finish this series we've been running. I've been running a series called Good Leadership Principles, and we are on Principles of Good Leadership. We're on number 7. So for those who missed them, number 1 is be an attentive listener. Number 2, own up to your mistakes. Number 3, communicate with others. Number 4, be creative. Number 5, establish shared values. Number 6, continue honing your leadership ability. So today we're going to look at the last 3, and I hope that you will be able to benefit immensely. Those of you who've missed this series, you can actually catch it on Facebook or on my YouTube channel. So if you're watching this via YouTube, all you need to do is go to, make sure you subscribe by clicking on the subscription button, and of course, click those notification, the notification bell, put it to all notifications that you receive, all the notifications that come. So remember to subscribe, and remember to share this with somebody out there. So do your part, share with somebody, and make sure you are part of our meetings every day. We run them from Monday to Friday. So just just lock this moment up and make sure you do not miss. If you miss, catch the recording, which is always on my page. So anyway, so number 7 today, we are on set a good example. Now, one of the most important principles a leader can have is to lead by example. Everything they do will be reflected in their employees' actions. So if a leader complains, does poor work, and is unprofessional, their team will do the same. The team will likely follow them if they are kind, enthusiastic about their work, honest, and dedicated. So good leaders are aware that their every move may be scrutinized. So they work hard to ensure that everything they do is something that their team can emulate. This is not to say that leaders do not make mistakes. On the contrary, how leaders handle mistakes is an opportunity to lead by example. So one of the most amazing things I have always taught, which I learned, is this: you are not living for yourself. Just pause right there. If you become a leader, it's not about you anymore. That's why God made a very profound statement. To him whom much is given, much is required. Oh, I want to lead, I want to do this. Then you have a deeper, greater responsibility. It's one of the reasons why I have a very big bone to pick with people in church leadership who have a moral failing and are not able to put themselves on the line and demonstrate. One of the things that I love about the church where I fellowship, I've been fellowshipping there 11 years, no intention of living whatsoever. One of the things I love about that church is that when there's a moral failing on the part of leadership, I'm telling you, they make the hard decisions. I know for a fact, but like I've said this several times, we've had different pastors in the last, I've had 3 different pastors in the last 11 years. And the last pastor who just left launched so many disciples, launched so many churches and so many leaders who went on to start their own congregations. And some of them I know he loved dearly. And one of them went through a very big challenge, very big. This is like one of our best pastors. I love this guy. He went through a massive challenge in his life, which was, by the standards of our church, a big deal, a very big deal. And our pastor, our two pastors, the previous senior pastor and the current senior pastor, had to make a very hard decision. They had to call him and the wife back to the main church and sit them and then allow them to go through the process of restitution. It's still ongoing. It's past 1 year plus since they left their church to come. And it's been very hard, but they have had to stand by it because that is the standard in the church. The book of the code of ethics are there. The standards are there. And everyone in the church who is committed in leadership knows what the standards are. We have a constitution. They know what the Constitution says. So leading by example. One of the poorest tendencies in our circles is not to lead by example. As so many leaders would rather sweep stuff under the carpet. And if they themselves are found morally wanting, they're not willing to put and subject themselves to that kind of accountability. This is why we have such a challenge in the church today, because people aren't willing to be morally accountable. Now, if the church, which is supposed to be the city set on a hill, if the church is supposed to be the salt of the earth, if they're supposed to be the light of the world, and they cannot set an example, you think the politicians will set an example? How? They will never set an example, because they'll just simply point at the church and say, well, you got a couple of bishops and apostles and prophets that are busy sleeping around. Who are you to tell me about morality when your people are busy sleeping with each other? Go sort yourself out first. You know, that's the idea behind get rid of the log in your eye first before you can remove the speck in your brother's eye. And that's the challenge with being an example. An example means you set the pace. That's why we're called pace setters. Leaders are pace setters. You want people to show up, so you want people to be early at work, be early at work. You want people to be honest and retire impressed, you be honest and retire impressed. You want to learn to have people apologize to one another when something is wrong, you apologize when you're wrong. So they always say that the culture of a company is a reflection of its leadership. I'll say that again. The culture of a company is the reflection of its leadership. So the question again is, what kind of leader are you? Are you one of those bigger, larger than life, everybody must worship you, every word you say is correct kind of leader? Or are you the kind of leader that rolls up your sleeves and gets to work in the muck, in the mud, in the trenches with your people? What kind of leader are you? Because we've got leaders that sit like a boss up in a chair somewhere just barking orders, and you've got those that come on the ground and example themselves. That's what setting or being a good example is. It's being able to be on the ground, being an example. And once again, this is why to all of us, and I mean this is not just the leaders, everyone, including those listening to me, to the sound of my voice, those that are watching me by whatever this platform is, you are the example. You are a leader in your home. If you want people to do what you say, you don't go to buy some special charm from some magician posing as a pastor. No, you become the example you want to see. That's why, for example, myself, I've told this to my daughters, my sons, my children at home. I said, I don't live for myself, I live for you guys. I have lived to be the best someone I can be by my conduct. So it's not me preaching to you and doing all these devotions and doing these videos that really makes a difference in your life. No, I'm not going to sermonize. My life must be a sermon. Do you want to see how you should treat your wife? Watch how I treat my wife, your mom. Do you want to see how a man of God ought to be? Watch what I do as a man of God. Do you want to see what a leader ought to be? Watch what I do as a leader. But in my home especially, every conduct I do is a sermon to my children. So ask yourself a question. What's your conduct? When you're before your men, what's your conduct? At our church, again, I'm going to use my church a lot as an example because there are some great things at the church. I'm not saying our church isn't without fault. Every church has major issues. But here's some parts I like about our church. All the leaders, anybody who wants to be a leader must set an example. And that means you do your 3 services per week, you do your outreach, and you're involved. So that's extremely important. All the spiritual exercises that should be done must be done. Now, I understand there's an element of hypocrisy. And truth be told, no one can see the heart of a person. Only God sees the heart. So we do not know whether some do it to be seen and whether others do it as part of their responsibility of being the right type of disciple, the right kind of Christian. That's, of course, only for you and God. But what I know is that when I set a good example by demonstrating, it is easier to win people over. That's why great men of God will be on the trenches with their disciples, boots on the ground, demonstrating what it's like to go and evangelize. They will be on the ground demonstrating what it's like to be a good usher. They will demonstrate what it's like to be part of ministry. They'll be on the ground. So there you are. Set a good example. That's what great leadership is. Are you setting a good example? Or are you the type who just talks? There's a saying I came across many years ago, which I've loved to this day. It says, and I quote, "What you are doing is so loud, I cannot hear what you say." I'll say it again. What you're doing is so loud, I cannot hear what you're saying. Which brings me to number 8, accept change. Now, this is another deep and very powerful concept here when it comes to life and leadership. Change is an inevitable part of life, and leaders can help teams embrace it wholeheartedly. When change occurs, good leaders do not grumble or complain. Instead, they lead by example and demonstrate the positive outcome that can occur. On this issue alone, there are so many people who are such bad leaders when they don't accept. For example, I'm very big on headship. Okay, so back again to ministry. I think it's just one of the good examples today. So in ministry, there's something called headship. Headship means that you operate under a council of elders. So for example, at another church I know that I love so much, they have a council of elders. They have an like an archbishop, and then general overseer, if you like. And then he has bishops, then bishops have reverends, then reverends have pastors. So all these are spread all across, the country and outside the country. Now, headship demands that any kind of change, any kind of issue that happens in the ministry must be endorsed by headship. That's the idea of laying on of hands and consecrating and then releasing. Now, the way headship works is that sometimes you are going to find that you will be called upon to go to another church. They will leave, they'll say, okay, you've worked well that side, you're now being redirected. You need to come back to headquarters and then you're going to be redirected. And you're redirected elsewhere. And you may not like where you're redirected, but when you work under leadership, you obey. Secondly, the people in that redirected church, you may have bonded so much with the other pastor, but now they've gone to be, elsewhere, and they bring another pastor. You must learn to accept that new pastor. This is true even in companies. We may be loyal to one particular boss whom we like so much, but for whatever reason, that one now has been moved, or they've left the company, or they've gone elsewhere, and they've brought someone else. Leadership demands that we take that loyalty we had to that former person and give it to the new person. Why? Because you are not loyal to the person, you are loyal to the office. So that's one of the most important things that we must understand. We respect the office. Now, this thing of being a leader and readily able to accept new change demonstrates that changes are required and can benefit an organization or a team. And when leaders make the decision to embrace change, the entire organization is more likely to follow suit. Leaders with exceptional talent and good instincts see and treat change as a new opportunity for growth and improvement, because new experiences and changes are unavoidable. Learning to embrace them will make everything go more smoothly. So this thing of accepting change is very important. And it's not just in terms of changing people, but in changing systems, in changing the tools, especially on tools. I have seen that even in places like ministries in government and offices and organizations, people can be so stubborn, they don't want to change to the new system. But you know what? Great leadership demands that you make the switch. Because why? Because this is what has been commanded by the people above you. Remember, you are subordinate to those individuals. So if the individuals from headquarters or wherever tell you that this is now the new system we're using, you must be the first to embrace that new system and to follow it thoroughly. In the military, that's what happens. They don't argue with leadership, okay? So you have to absolutely embrace what leadership says, and you must demonstrate it. In the army, it's a big deal. The difference in life and death is to be absolutely obedient to those that are above you, to headship, because it's part of leadership. So learn to embrace change. Now, one other aspect very quickly before I go to the next item, change, as I said, is inevitable. But another thing about change is that it can be sudden. There is something that we call, we teach it a lot in this group, we call it the disruption. Change is very disruptive in nature. And those who are smart, those who are clever, have learned how to embrace the disruptive nature of change when it shows up. You have to sit back and really figure out, how do we make this work? That's why smart people will bring in experts to carry out what we call change management, training, where you're helping people to come to terms with whatever is going on there, because obviously they're not happy with it. So you have to help them kind of adjust and change to the new developments. People take long to accept change. People find it very difficult to embrace change. And that's why many times, many of them end up obsolete. You must learn that change is inevitable. The only thing that doesn't change is God. Everything else is real. By the way, when we talk about change, there's also change on a personal level. I mean, I'm 50 this year, and there's no way as a 50-year-old I can, continue behaving like I'm 20. I mean, unless I'm Tom Cruise, who trains like crazy to do those crazy stunts in his movies. But you have to accept that you're just not a spring chicken anymore. So because you're not a spring chicken anymore, you have to learn to accept the changes that are coming in your body and to make adjustment for them. Otherwise, you go into what we call a midlife crisis. And midlife crisis is worse than just accepting the fact that you're a 50-year-old, you're just no longer a kid anymore, and you're in fact heading towards senior citizenship status. And so if you're going to be heading in that direction, embrace that change and be happy about it. Don't be stubborn and refuse to admit that this is something you cannot change. One of my favorite quotes is the Nesbitt quote, which is the biggest cornerstone of Alcoholics Anonymous. So Alcoholics Anonymous usually quote this particular saying, and I love it so much. And every one of you should make it a mantra in your life. And the quote states, and I repeat, it says, "Give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference." So Nesbitt, it was actually a prayer. So, Alcoholics Anonymous, because they try not to be, as aligned to one particular side. So they obviously had to remove the part Lord. But in the Nesbitt prayer, it says, "Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change." So meaning, give me the peace and the calmness to realize that some things can never be changed. So because they cannot be changed, just give me that ability to accept that. And then on the other hand, the courage to change the things I can. So if there's something that you can change it. And many times the easiest change is yourself. It's easy to change yourself to suit the circumstances than to try and change the circumstances to suit you. That's very difficult. So the easier of the two is to change yourself. And that's why I'm big on changing self. Once you work on yourself, it's easy to adjust to whatever the environment is pushing your way. And then the wisdom to know what can be changed and what cannot be changed. And truth be told, you can't change people, you can't change circumstances. Like, for example, right now, it is UPND and President HH in charge. Whether you like it or not, that's our president for the next 4 years now. And so at that point, the best you can do is adjust yourself to suit the current environment. That's just how life is. For the last 10 years, we had the Patriotic Front. There's nothing you could do. You just had to change and adjust yourself to accept that type of leadership. So every time there's always change. Before the Patriotic Front, we had the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy, MMD, for 20 years. That was the reality. And before them, we had the United National Independence Party, UNIP. That was the reality then. And every one of these, there was change. And when change came, it was disruptive, it was unavoidable, it was inevitable, and we either accepted it or we died. That's just how life is. Let me finish with my last point and we close this particular lessons, and that is make everyone feel valued. Leaders have no favorites. As we say in Nyanja, nipweze mufuti. Leaders have no favorites. That's why if you want to be a good leader, have a standard code of ethics, because then that standard becomes the go-to place. And when there's a situation, you refer to the go-to place. Standards help you to avoid the inevitable challenge any human being faces in dealing with issues. So make everyone feel valued. Leaders have no favorites. Making everyone you interact with feel like an important member of the team is part of effective leadership. People notice when a leader appears to favor one person over another. It can lower morale, it can cause a lack of respect, and even cause problems among co-workers. This is the reason why it is extremely unfortunate when you have leaders or bosses having affairs with juniors. That is just the most detestable behavior there is, because it takes away morality. It takes away the ability to be objective. It's very difficult to be objective when you have a sexual relationship going on with somebody in your staff. That's extremely unfortunate. Now, I realize we live in a very morally bankrupt world where this is the standard norm practiced by a number of our senior people up there. It's extremely unfortunate. And unfortunately, I'm even ashamed to admit that in the church now, we also have that going on. Extremely unfortunate. The standard, that's why I always say the standard must be a written standard, because then that cannot be disputed. The standard is this: leaders do not have any kind of interactions that are of that nature with people under their supervision. It just messes up your ability to be effective. And so people pick it because they can notice, they can see. And you know, the funny thing about life is that the moment you get into sexual relationships with people that are your juniors, not only do people pick it, who are very discerning, especially women, it is also going to affect the level of respect or reverence between the subordinate, the junior, and the individual at hand. Because all of a sudden, there's just no respect. It's not there anymore. And this is true whether it's a maid at home, or it's a church member, or it's a worker. It will be picked. Secretary, personal assistant, whatever it is, it will be picked. There'll be a certain way of behavior that's just going to go away. It's not going to be there anymore. So to those who've made it a habit of sleeping with the help, you need help. That's what you need. You need to do what alcoholics who've had a moment of awakening do, or a moment of clarity do. They go to seek therapy. Because let me assure you, it's not going to take you anywhere. It's just going to cause a lot of unnecessary problems. So people pick it, right? A good leader is concerned with uniting and uplifting the entire team. They work with individuals to help them understand their role, how they can help the organization, and why they are important. And this allows team members to see the value that each of them brings and can help them recognize it in one another. All right, so it's a really amazing truth, and that, my friends, is so critical. Let me read a few pointers which were shared, some very good ones. I saw some here. Dr. Nelly, I'm sorry, good. That's what's it? Nelson, thanks, Nelson. Then Thompson, what you are doing is so loud, I can't hear what you're saying, of course. And then Martha Limo over in Uganda. Good morning, all. Good principle. This is leading by example, challenges, motivates, and inspires the team. That's correct. Madam Martha has worked with a lot of very powerful and high-level organizations internationally. And these are critical points that I bring to the table, to the fore. You have to understand that unless you are willing to lead by these principles, you will see your leadership fail. You will have a leadership crisis. And that's why many times great leaders are seen in times of both crisis and just general times. When they lead well, when they follow principles like the ones I've been sharing, it shows. It's not something that you have to struggle with. It's not something that you have to prove. Everybody can see it. And so on that note, I want to thank all of you for being part of our calls every morning. Remember to share this. Remember, if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. And of course, click the notifications bell to remain alerted. Tomorrow, we're going to have the next session, which is usually Mindset Change Program under Auntie Sylvia. On Wednesday, Anne has been kind enough to allow me to come back and finish the last of my topics, which is going to be the 7 capitals needed to start a business without money. And we're looking at the last of the capitals, which is social capital. So on that note, it is a Monday. Go out there and conquer. Have a great day.